I'm so sorry for dumping that on you.
Oh, you're good. I do the same thing sometimes, believe it or not.
It happens. Everybody does it. It happens. Sorry, I haven't slept in a while. How
That's
are you
right.
doing?
Well, I'm having a little bit of difficulties. I just found out that my disability money isn't going to be here for 3 weeks. I
No.
lost it when Natalie was killed.
What?
Yeah,
Why?
my friend Natalie, I just assumed you were one of the people who sent me a friend request when Natalie Bollinger was killed. But
No.
she, she got shot in the head in December of 2017, and people assume that I did it to begin with. So the police did a lot of messed up stuff, and I haven't had my disability money to work with ever since. But they found the guy who killed her at least.
Well, that's good. My friend was murdered, Zachary Pache, and they haven't still found his killer. And I wasn't blamed or anything, but it's really rough to go through.
Well,
So I don't understand your situation, but
on the bright side, they're gonna give me my money back.
Are you gonna get back pay?
Yes, ma'am.
Good, you deserve it.
Well, unfortunately, the things that the courts and the police did to me is about 10 times more than I'm gonna get ever out of them. But that's the way life goes. A lot of times, like I was letting you know, with everything that people did to me after she was killed and the things that her family was doing and a lot of her meth head friends, because, you know, there was a lot of drugs with them.
Yeah.
You know, I get paranoid as all hell. I do when people are typing at me and I don't quite understand what it is they're trying to say. Or if I'm being sarcastic and people don't get my sense of humor because they can't hear my tone of voice, a lot of times they'll get paranoid. A lot of the people that were trying to help me, I was trying to get them to talk to other people that were trying to help me, but everybody was so paranoid of each other. Like they all wanted to text with me for hours on end. Well, how do you know this is a real person? Well, I've been friends with this person for 20 years, so that's how I know they're a real person. Or how do you know this is really Natalie's stepmom? Well, she called me from the same number that Alicia Bollinger called me from, so I know that she's somehow in connection with the Bollinger family, you know?
Yeah. No, I get that. My friend used to text me like every day, and then like I texted his brother, kind of like seeking like support, but I was trying to support him at the same time. He just ended up blocking me, and it kind of broke my heart. And I knew him since high school. Well, I don't know.
I hope this doesn't come out wrong.
I only talk.
I grew up in a
Yeah.
system, and I don't really feel right around white folks, and you don't sound like a white folk.
I'm mixed.
All right,
You're
that makes
fine.
sense.
You're fine. Don't. If you don't want to talk on the phone, I totally get it. I just kind of wanted to tell you that, like, I feel like you're. I'm not trying to say it like in a mean way. I feel like you're paranoid like me sometimes.
Well,
I don't come off that way. I try not to do it.
well, I can understand. I mean, for me, it's a different situation because there were a lot of people that actually were playing head games and were threatening my life and stuff like that. And I wasn't trying to downplay your disabilities at all. I mean, you know, it's tough to deal with sometimes. And it's difficult when you can't hear somebody's tone of voice. It's difficult to understand what they mean.
No, for real. And I've actually learned how to put emotion in my voice somehow.
I had to learn how to do that.
Because people always think I'm an asshole. I'm not.
you're probably pretty straightforward and people can't handle it. Like if you're having a bad day and people ask you how you're doing and you say, I'm having a bad day, well, don't be negative all the time. Well, if they can't handle the truth, don't ask. That's kind of
I
how I look
know,
at it.
but you know what's crazy is that I'm black, but I was adopted. I was raised by white people, so I feel a little bit comfortable too. You know, sorry I reached out to you,
Oh, you're
but
totally
that's
good.
why.
This is, you know, half the time that I spend helping others. A lot of times people just need somebody to talk to, and a lot of times, like with the texting thing, I take things wrong. I really do, just because I am paranoid because of things that actually happened, and
Yeah,
that's really difficult to explain. Like sometimes people are paranoid because they have low self-esteem. Sometimes people are paranoid because they've been through a lot of shit and they just don't trust anybody anymore.
yeah. I got ran out of Texas because my real dad's a pastor, and I had a. Have you heard of gang stalking?
Yes, I've dealt with a lot of that actually. I could send you. I have 8,000 close to 10,000 screenshots now of people gang stalking me over the death of
No, it's a real
Natalie.
thing. My parents don't believe me.
Well, it really does happen.
And he had the whole church like run me out of town. It wasn't like a mob thing, but you know how like people like talk about you in passing, like with gang stalking, it sounds like it's about you. But maybe I'm just paranoid. I'm not on drugs or anything, but
Me
I
either.
just have I don't know. I get my head.
Well, I know about gang stalking. Let me just so you know, I'm telling you straight up. My friend Natalie, she rescued me from killing myself over being gang stalked by the Boulder Police Department. And when she was suicidal over her dad raping her and a bunch of shit like that, like everybody in her life were all on drugs and alcohol and put so much pressure on her. And she told me we planned a trip to Virginia, and she told me before she got on the plane that if I wasn't gonna go visit her in Virginia, she wasn't getting on the plane. So I promised to go, and I didn't go. I was like 3 months late getting there. She called me one night and said that she was gonna fucking kill herself if I wasn't already on the road, and then she ran her car into a tree. So I made sure that I made it to Virginia. In Virginia, I got a broken phone. I'm autistic, so I don't do well in a new environment, especially when I don't have familiar people nearby, people who understand me, who can explain it. Like if somebody sees me having a meltdown or sees me having a panic attack, their reaction might send me into a meltdown. Well,
No.
her sister gave me a broken phone, and the broken phone didn't work right, and it was all sorts of crap. And she quit her job like 10 minutes after giving me the phone. So I had a meltdown. I was in Virginia. It was hot as hell, and I was severely dehydrated, and I got stuck outside of her mom's house in traffic with my vehicle broken. My steering column was free floating, and she thought I. Go ahead.
Sorry, that was my puppy. He was crying. He wants to go to the bathroom. I'm gonna take him real quick.
You're good.
But I can talk. That was my
You're good.
puppy. I swear, I was listening.
I love dogs. They
Keep
they
going.
help. But anyway, because I was stuck in the
Okay.
road and I was scared of a family of six creaming me into the side of my vehicle, I stared forward and honked my horn so that people would know I was there and I just needed help. Well, her family accused me of stalking her, and then they spread. I knew them from Boulder, Colorado, and they told a mutual friend who was supposed to go with me that I threatened her family, which was not the truth, and they told the cops that I stalked them, which was not the truth. And I got back to Boulder, and I had people pushing me and shoving me, and pretty soon the rumors got all out of hand, and You know, pretty soon I got people accusing me of being a child molester and a rapist, and I'm like, this is not at all what happened. You know, I grew up in a system. I have been raped. I have been molested. I have been through this. But the gang stalking got worse and worse and worse, and I couldn't see any of my loved ones, and I couldn't even be there to defend myself against any of the rumors because if I was there, people were going to assault me, and then they were going to call me mentally ill. So it makes it okay for these people to assault me because I must be in the wrong because I'm the one who's mentally ill. And then she had sent me an email about her dad, and I used that to expose him. And 2 weeks later, she got shot in the head. And because of that email and the situation that happened over me exposing her dad, I had to deal with gang stalking that I had already gone through for a whole year before she was killed. I had to deal with 1,000 times worse since then. And because of what happened to Natalie, the people that I was staying with, they had spent all of my disability money, and the police assaulted me and charged me with assault. And then basically they were trying to diagnose me with have me diagnosed with schizophrenia so that they could justify the fact that they hadn't done their jobs for an entire year before she was killed. For a whole year before
Man,
she was killed, I was gang stalked. But after she was killed, it was all over the news. They posted my name all over the news and my face all over the news. And, you know, a whole bunch of slander against me all over the news. And there was nothing I could do about it. And Natalie was dead, so she couldn't speak up.
sorry, my phone.
That's all right.
What'd you say?
I said the worst part is that like I didn't even know how to take screenshots to show Natalie. And when she died, like there was nothing that I could do except take the gang stalking, take the thousands of people that were threatening my life over what the news had to say and what the police had done. And you know that's the thing is that gang stalking is very real.
Like, police don't do shit. I've called the police on my dad, like my real dad, the pastor, who gang stalked me with the church, and they don't do shit. They think because I have schizophrenia, it's not happening, and that's why I get so paranoid when people comment on my stuff, and I'll message you. I'm sorry.
That's all right.
I've been gang stalked too. I
It'll
swear,
drive you
I'm not lying.
crazy. It will drive you crazy, and I mean it. It really does drive you crazy.
I was never a crier, like, because of the schizophrenia. But since I have schizophrenia, they think I'm an easy target, and gang stalking's so hard because how can you charge a group of people? And you don't know their names.
Well, I know a lot of their names, but the police just won't look at it. But that's the thing
Right,
is
no,
when
they
people are talking trash behind your back, and then you've got people that are shunning you in public, at the supermarket, everywhere that you go. I mean, whether you're schizophrenic or not, it's still wrong.
It is, and it hurts. It hurts bad. And I don't know what to do. I want to move away and change my name. My dad's really ruined my life because I'm not the perfect pastor's daughter. I smoke cigarettes. I don't do drugs, but I smoke cigarettes, and he don't like it. And it seems like even if I don't like a certain food, they'll come after me. I think they're in my phone. Do you think anybody's in your phone? Like hacking and shit?
Well, I know for a fact that people have hacked my stuff before. Like right after Natalie died, there were hacker groups that try to go after, you know, people who prey on little girls and stuff like that. You know, they go after like child molesters and stuff. And because of the way that I was painted, they're like, oh, well, he must be one of those guys. Facebook actually sent me a notice saying that my account had been hacked. Also, the police, because everybody thought that I had done it before they caught Joseph Lopez, who was the guy who actually killed her. The police put a screen lock on my phone, and I couldn't use it.
Just saying,
Like
sorry, I'm okay.
You're all right, but I couldn't use it to have YouTube videos and post them to my Facebook anymore because of that screen lock. And that screen lock was on there for like 4 months before a friend helped me get it off of there.
See, none of them never message me directly. It's all like, maybe it's all in my head, but it's too many like specific text messages and shit. Like they'll read my text messages. Like I don't like this food. And it's like something I said to my friend yesterday. Like maybe they're in my iCloud or something. I don't know. I've changed my number.
No,
I
that's
moved
an
back home.
algorithm. That's an algorithm. It's kind of like, when you're on Facebook,
I had a house in.
if you type on Facebook about schizophrenia, all of a sudden you're getting a bunch of ads about schizophrenia and schizophrenia treatment. Or if you type about soldiers, all of a sudden you get a bunch of stuff about the Army recruiting or the Navy recruiting and stuff like that. It's an algorithm for advertisement. They
Okay, that could be it. Man,
Google
it's hard though.
especially.
I don't know.
If you have an Android phone, even in your private text
I haven't been.
messages, if you use private text messages in between you and your friends, if you type, let's say you're typing about taking Pimozide or Orap, which are two medications. They're actually the same medication. But if you're typing about that, then you'll notice that when you get onto your YouTube account or your Facebook account or your emails, you'll get advertisements about different drug retailers and different pharmaceutical retailers and stuff like that to get cheaper medications. And even if it's just in text messages, which are supposed to be private.
Yeah, it's wrong. I think it's wrong because I don't know. I don't like to call myself super paranoid, but I don't like it. It makes me paranoid.
Well, I didn't
Even
use.
sitting outside makes me paranoid. Sorry, I hiccuped.
You're good. I didn't used to be completely paranoid, but I'd seen this stuff happen to people before, and so I knew what to expect when it happened to me. And I had hoped that my friends would love me enough and care about me enough to speak up when it mattered, and they were all afraid. They were afraid of the gang stalkers as well.
I feel that one.
Sorry about the dinging. That's my computer. It's
They're afraid of it.
do what? I only
My
heard.
friends were too scared to speak out about it too, but they were doing some weird shit. They were like, it was, I don't know, it was just too specific not to be about me, and they'd say some like secrets I had. I do have secrets, I'm not like the perfect person in the world. It's just, they'd start talking like I wasn't in the room.
I do know.
You think that's gang stalking?
That
Does anybody
that's
ever
part
talk
of it.
about you like you're not there?
I've had a lot of people do that, especially when they're mad at me or if they hear a rumor and they're too afraid to act on what they want to do. It's passive aggressive, is what it is.
It hurts. I don't have any friends anymore. Really, that's kind of why I messaged you and needed to call somebody.
You're good. I've been through it, so I'm not gonna judge you at all for that. And also, I want to say that even if you are schizophrenic, that doesn't mean that those things aren't happening. I had a friend of mine who was raped, and she was schizophrenic, and her rapist got away with it because she was schizophrenic, despite the rape kit and the bruising and everything else. So, I mean, just because of a disability that you may or may not have doesn't make it okay. They tried to have me diagnosed with schizophrenia because I was trying to tell on police after Natalie was killed and all the messed up
Wow.
things that they did. So,
My dad, I just don't know him. I wanted to move away from my other dad, my adopted one, because he's a little bit just emotionally abusive. And sometimes, like, I've been on disability since I was 13 because I was seeing spiders and various other things, and I was reclusive. And I feel like he just wanted to make me paranoid to see me freak out in public. I usually keep my composure. I'm pretty good. I've dealt with it for 7-8 years. So I come off as like I'm normal, but then he just started triggering like stuff.
see that's something that we have in the autism community too, though, is triggers and You know, a lot of people, when they know your triggers, especially when parents want you to be normal, a lot of times they'll do a lot of that passive aggressive antagonism, and it hurts. You know, this is somebody that you want to love you and you want them to understand you, and they're too busy trying to make you someone else. And that's
Yeah,
not saying that
for
that's
sure.
your situation. I don't want to try telling you that your dad is some sort of a
Sorry.
terrible monster or anything like that.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
I sometimes, I'm never really been a crier, but it's hard. Whew.
I started crying a lot after Natalie died, and I literally cry every day. Before that, I think I'd cried maybe twice in 7 years.
That's how I felt 5 years. I counted it. I couldn't burst out in tears. Like, people died around me, and I couldn't cry. And then this gang stalking started, or whatever is going on, and I just can't stop crying. Everybody knows my secret. It's okay. I mean, I got nothing to hide, but I feel like my life's not private anymore.
I get that.
Everything I do is being watched, and I hate being outside. I love hiking, but I can't do it anymore. Nature helps.
See, that's exactly it for me. I mean, going out in the woods, animals are the best. Dogs and cats love me. Kids, as long as they're, you know, happy, kids are great too. It just adults are stupid.
Adults are mean. They're worse than high schoolers.
They're brutal, yeah. There's nobody to put them in check when they decide that they're going to get together in their little cliques and friggin' gang up on you as a group. It does hurt. It is scary.
Yeah.
And I've had a lot of people that did that. You know, they told me that they loved me, and then when they did that, you know, I reacted. I was like, you know, that's a really messed up thing that you're doing, and then they just threw me away like I was trash.
Wow.
Yep.
I'm so sorry that happened to you. You
That's
don't
all
deserve
right.
it.
Well, if you type my name on the internet or you type Natalie's name on the internet, you'll get to see a small portion of what I've gone through. I got a.
Okay.
You'll get to
If you
see.
want me to,
I do. I really would like you to know, you know, who it is that you're talking to and what the rest of the world has to say. Now, the other thing is, with most of that, it's slander. It's that gang stalking stuff, but it's all over the internet with me. It's not just a small church group or a
what
decent
I
sized
see.
church congregation. I've had people threaten my life from countries I've never even heard of.
Wow.
Yep,
I'm so sorry.
that's
I
right.
don't
It's
know.
not
I
your
might
fault.
lose it someday. They want me to, though. That's what they want. They want me to lose it and punch somebody or hurt somebody, and I don't want to. Schizophrenics aren't violent. I've never even been in a fight in my life.
Well, I grew up in the system, and I'm a white boy, so I learned how to fight at a very young age.
Yeah. See, I
Yeah,
was always like, I wasn't mute exactly, but I would be talk to the people I wanted to talk to, you know, so people wouldn't really mess with me. They're kind of scared. Intrusives.
people are
Colorado.
definitely scary.
Yeah.
Like when Natalie died, she was killed in Thornton, Colorado. At the time, I was living in Inglewood, Colorado, and I was actually visiting my friend Peaches in Aurora, Colorado, and I can hear you clicking your lighter. I'm a smoker
I
too.
smoked cigarettes.
But, you know, a lot of times it's not even that people intentionally want to gang stalk you that way. It's that one person who's popular gets a bad idea, or one person with a position of power has, you know, their own paranoid feelings or whatever. and then they go and talk to their friends, and because they're more popular or they have a more prestigious position, then other people start to interact with you differently, and you notice it, you know.
You do. You really do.
And then you got people who say, well, you just got to let it go. And I did let it go. You know, when I left Virginia, I drove 1,700 miles away to let it go, and it followed me to Boulder, Colorado. So I left Boulder, Colorado for Chapel, Nebraska, and it followed me to Chapel, Nebraska.
I guess there's really no way out other than just dealing with it, because I want to move away. I thought buying a cheap piece of property and just setting up a tent. So
See, that's the dream for a lot of people who have been through that. For me, right before Natalie died, I was saving up my disability money and my back payments. I was trying to save it up so that I could buy property to help out people like us. But the problem is that when Natalie got shot, the people that I was staying with, they had stolen all of my money, and they were supposed to pay me back the 8th of December, and they didn't. And at that point, I realized that I needed to move. I needed to get back to Chapel. But by that point, I thought that my housing was already up because I hadn't paid it. Well, it turned out that they didn't cancel my housing until January of 2018. And by that point, Natalie was already dead, and the cops were already pulling all their stuff, and they wouldn't take a report from me, kept on treating me, giving me the mentally ill treatment like I was schizophrenic. I mean, these people gang stalked me to the point that I was suicidal. No, they don't.
in fact, they made me paranoid too. They said some things like that it sounded like they knew. And I just, like, my dad, he's like the king of Coolidge, Texas. He has a restaurant, and he's a pastor, and he's perfect, type shit. And it just started out there when I moved. As soon as I moved to Coolidge, I lost my house, and now I'm back living with my parents.
I tried going back to my dad's, but my dad and I haven't gotten along for over 20 years. Whoa, sorry. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Not, the dog wants to play, and I totally tripped over him.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you got hurt.
No, I'm good. But
Okay.
yeah, my dad, he beat me up a few times over an F in PE that I got, and so I left, and he just never forgave me for that. And then, he wanted me to get on disability when I was younger because we knew I was autistic. We knew I have Tourette syndrome and all that. And he's like, well, Sean, you're eligible for disability. And he didn't understand that, everywhere that I went, people were like, oh, well, you're smart. You're not eligible for this. But I was still disabled. But because nobody went in with me, I got turned down and ignored and brushed off everywhere that I went for help. And whenever I'd talk to my dad, he'd treat me like trash because in his mind, I should have magically been able to just snap my fingers and these people were going to give me disability. And it doesn't work that way. But also, my dad got disability money for me as a kid. But when I became an adult, I literally got dropped off without an ID, without a birth certificate, without a social security card. I had one shoe, I had a t-shirt, and a pair of pants. And, that's not easy to start off with.
No, it's not. They got it from me as a kid, too, and I never saw a lot of it, and I always owe my dad. I don't know, he'll make up expenses that I owe, like, every month. It'll be more and more and more. And soon I have, like, barely any money, or, like, $200 left. I wanted to get away and move out.
Well, I started paying rent to my dad when I was 15. I also moved to Nebraska when I was 15, and it was culture shock because I swear I'd never seen so many white people in one place, like, ever my whole life without seeing another minority. Like,
I moved from... Sorry. Go ahead.
You're good?
Yeah, I'm good.
Yeah, Chapel, Nebraska, it's racist redneckville. I mean, it's getting better. When I first moved here, they hated homosexuals and blacks and Mexicans, and now they just mostly hate homosexuals, blacks, and Mexicans. But for me,
Oh,
like,
wow.
I grew up with, you know, most of the places that I was locked up, it was black kids, Asian kids, and Hispanic kids.
Yeah,
And a lot of them
you're
were
like
in
a
there. Go ahead.
good person. I was gonna say that. Okay?
I try to
I'm
be.
sorry you went through that.
Sorry, you cut out there.
No, I said, that's good. Me too. I feel like I try.
That's the important part.
Nobody understands when you don't mean to, like, yeah.
Well, that's why I try
I
to
get delusional when I don't. Huh?
I try to steer clear of typing because of that, but most people will only type with me, and then I know that I'm taking stuff wrong because you know what they're typing at me and the things that they're getting angry at. I can tell that they're taking wrong, and obviously, if they're taking stuff wrong, then it's got to be a two-way street. It can't be just them, you know. A lot
No,
of times
of course.
when I take something wrong, I say, "Hey, call me." Or if they're taking something wrong, I'm like, "All right, you need to call me, and listen to me." A lot of times people have a bad habit of giving advice. They just want to give advice like they're Pez dispensers, you know? And a
No,
lot of
it's
times,
true.
yeah,
My friends advise me to death. I swear to God, it hurts. And it's like, don't need another parent. My brother and
you
sister hate me.
you just need to
They
love
tried to be my
yourself.
parents. Huh?
That's You just need to love yourself. A lot of people think that that's going to fix it. I'm like, I do love myself. That's not the problem.
I
Loving
don't.
myself doesn't stop the gang stalking. It doesn't stop people from swinging at me. It doesn't stop people from threatening my life. It doesn't get my disability back.
No. Yeah. That's what I'd say. Just, like, stop being paranoid. Nobody's stalking you, Lexus. There's no evidence. I'm like, there's so much evidence in my life. Nobody texts me, though. They don't threaten me or anything. It's just, like, in public. When I go out in public, people will, like, I don't know how to explain it. Just talk, like, behind my back. And it's random people I don't even know. And my dad was a truck driver. He's been, like, to all the states. So I know it's him.
Well, that's kind of a tough situation. I mean, for me, my dad wasn't a pastor, that's for sure. He didn't even find God until like a couple of years ago, I guess, from what he was saying. He had some major heart surgery. But I have people threaten me because they recognize my face from the news, or there's a lot of people in America who are really into those, sleuth groups about dead people. And
Yeah.
Natalie, she was a pretty big major case for a while, and I'm doing my best to try to keep her name out there, keep her name in the news, keep her name everywhere that I can, because Natalie was really a wonderful person. And that's something that a lot of people, they kind of overlook that when they want to help me, or they kind of overlook that I do recognize what a wonderful person she was. She was somebody who made a mistake, is what it was. She took things wrong, and it destroyed an innocent person's life, and it destroyed her life as well.
I'm so sorry.
It's not your fault. Her child molester daddy just got out of jail today. He wants me dead. He's also a meth dealer who almost got her twin sister killed on my birthday last year.
Wow.
That would have been the worst birthday of my life.
Meth is like.
And I have pretty bad birthdays.
I'm sorry. When's your birthday?
October 18th.
If I may ask.
Do
Mine's
what?
April 21st.
April 21st? So yours is coming up?
Yeah, it might be 24.
That's old as fuck. No,
No, I
I'm
didn't want to say that. I do feel like I'm like getting there, but you know.
I'm gonna turn 40 this year, so I'm quite a bit older than you. A lot of people would assume that because I'm talking to you that it means that I'm trying to hit on you, or they'd probably call you a little girl and say that I'm some sort of creeper, but really, I just,
You
I
just seem
care
like
about
somebody I
you.
could relate to. I
Yes,
wanted to
ma'am.
reach out and tell you about what's going on and why sometimes I message you when you comment on things, but I was too scared. It's so hard to say you're a schizophrenic. I try to come off as just, I don't like people getting to know me. I'm a big troll. Everything I say is a joke.
See, that's
Like,
why it's scary for me to even type at people, because sometimes a joke that I would tell them in person that they'd laugh at, if I type it, sorry, there's a train going by.
no, you're good.
If I type it, they think it's serious.
Yeah. No, I get that. Because, like, sometimes um, I'll come off as, like, emotionless when I say something, and people will take it wrong, like, you're an asshole. I'm like, no, I didn't mean it. I don't know.
Well, if you look my name up, you'll definitely get to see that the stuff that I'm talking about is definitely real. And then if you go back and you look at some of the stuff on my Facebook, you realize that, especially around the time that she died in the year before, like you realize that I never meant her any harm and I never wanted to date her or anything like that. She was wonderful to me. And the stuff that I have to deal with nationwide, it's not just paranoia, it's justified paranoia. Like if people are swinging at you and you say they're swinging at me, then they're because they're actually swinging at you. It's not like you're imagining it's happening. They're actually doing that. But when they call you
No.
mentally ill and use that as an excuse not to look at any of the evidence, like that just destroys a person's life.
Yeah. Hey, my dad needs me real quick. He's calling me. Can I text you?
Yes, you may.
Okay. Thank you. Bye.
Be safe. Bye.
You too.
Sometimes people are paranoid for a reason. Sometimes they are schizophrenic. But fear is the same no matter what. The things that I went through, well, they're because Natalie was paranoid. She was paranoid of things that I wouldn't do, not in a million years. But I was paranoid from experience. Paranoid because it had been happening and continued to happen, and I just wanted them to stop. She just wanted me to stop bugging her, and I wanted these people to stop threatening my life, to leave me alone so I could see my loved ones. And that never got to happen. As far as this young woman goes, I can see where she's coming from. I can see her fears, and although her fears are quite a bit different than mine, well, her fears are the same, but her situation is a lot different. And when you're talking about cliquey folk, like church folk, um, you definitely have to deal with a different sort of mentality. Now, it isn't just church folk who are like that. There are a lot of families who are like that. You know, real close-knit families. They'll gang stalk you too. And it doesn't necessarily mean that they're following you around with a vehicle all the time. Sometimes they're just running around spreading rumors that people are treating you badly for. With Shannon Alvarado, you know, she took a lot of risks in being my friend and also speaking out or typing out in public. But the other thing is, there were a lot of other people that were scared off by these mean people, these very cliquey people. Now, then, let's use the Martindales for an example. The Martindales were always good to me, but they're allowed to get angry. I've heard them yell at each other over the stupidest stuff. That's my shirt. Justine stole my pants. All sorts of just dumb things. But I wasn't freaking out about dumb things. I was freaking out about serious issues. Serious, serious issues. And they just couldn't understand that. Like, they're allowed to freak out over a pair of pants. I'm not allowed to freak out over. By that point, it had been a year and a half of gang stalking, and I'm not allowed to freak out at all. I have to be calm at all points in time. And most of these people, they remember me being calm all the time, no matter how fucked up the situation. I live a different life now. I'm overwhelmed all the time. This woman, the thing about her texting me, she thought I was mad at her. I wasn't mad at her. I typed something. I don't even know what I typed. Probably something sarcastic. But she needed some reassurance, you know? And she was typing at me, and I was typing to her back. I let her know, hey, you know, people take stuff wrong in typing. That's why I don't type. Or that's why I don't like typing. And, you know, then she thought that I was saying that she wasn't disabled, is how she interpreted it. And that wasn't the case either. And she let me know that she's tired and she hasn't slept much. And, you know, because I had said that or typed that I had preferred calling, you know, she took that to mean something completely different than I meant it as. So I tried to reassure her that wasn't the case. And then she called me, and I needed to give her some privacy, and I needed to give the guy I'm staying with some privacy, especially. But that's the thing, is that I wasn't trying to insinuate that she wasn't schizophrenic or that she was schizophrenic, you know. I wasn't commenting on that either way. It's just that, you know, in typing especially, it's easy to get paranoid. It's easy to take things the wrong way. And I'm glad she called me back, you know. I'm glad that she shared what she did. Now, she might be schizophrenic, but paranoia and schizophrenia don't have to be one thing. I mean, if you've been beaten up a bunch, and, well, when you've been beaten up a bunch, you can tell the actions that people start to exhibit before they start swinging. You already know that it's coming. Now, if you've never been beaten up, you might not know it's coming. You might not know with those things that people do, the way that they react, the way that they start moving, the way that their voice changes. You might not recognize those signals. But if you've been through it, you know it. That's a difficult thing to deal with. Now there's paranoia, and then there's justifiable paranoia. When you've never been raped, but you think that every guy is going to rape you, and you are constantly paranoid that every guy is a rapist, that's not justifiable. That's just paranoia. You might be schizophrenic. If you grew up with your dad, an uncle, and two brothers raping you, and four of the kids that you went to high school with gang raped you, and you had a boyfriend who wouldn't take no for an answer, then your paranoia is justified. You know. But then there's the people who want to listen to others. You know that somebody's not going to do something like that, but people who would do something like that, or maybe they wouldn't, maybe they're just paranoid. In Natalie's case, she was pretty and she was young, and people made a lot of really bad decisions, a lot of really bad assumptions. And instead of allowing her and I to speak like human beings, they wanted to give her shitty advice. Tell you what, you ignore him and you go to the police, and I'm gonna harass this guy. I'm gonna threaten this guy. I'm gonna fucking push this guy to the point that he is going to beg you to stop. And that's what was going on. Is that these people were harming me, and I was begging her to put a stop to it. But that didn't matter. It didn't matter because of my gender, because of my looks, because of my age. Because of that, I'm not as human as she was. Because of that, I must be a drug dealer. I must be a child molester. I must be a rapist. I must have to rape people to get laid. I mean, people are just mean. Just straight up mean. There's a lot of people that I talk to that, you know, they tell me that they want to help me, and then they call me up and talk to me about themselves. And that's not help. They're not going to be able to help me if they don't understand. And if they're busy trying to trade stories, they're not getting familiar with my situation. And if you're not familiar with my situation, you're not going to be able to help. I know a lot of schizophrenic people. I really do. But the other thing is, I know a lot of people who, if you didn't know the situation, you would think that they were schizophrenic. You would think that they're schizophrenic because they're paranoid. But really, they're paranoid for a reason. See, here's the thing. If people had left me alone when I left Virginia, this would have been over when I left Virginia. But they didn't leave me alone. And I tried to get people to help me to put a stop to it. Because when I tried to get help putting a stop to it, the first thing I did, this is what we get taught as kids. You know, when you're having to deal with a bully, the first thing you do is ask him to stop. If it's a rumor that is the source of the bullying, you go to the source of that rumor. That was Natalie Bollinger, Alicia Bollinger, and Maddie Boa. If that doesn't work, you go to an authority figure like a parent or a teacher or the police. Going to the police didn't work. I went to my friends. I went to Joanna Taylor Smith. I went to Derek Parrish. I went to Mark Swanigan. You know, I went to people who were mutual friends of ours. I tried to do what it is that they suggested. That sitting down and having coffee with Maddie Boa thing, that was Joanna Taylor Smith's idea. Meeting Natalie Bollinger at the Starbucks in Boulder, that was Natalie's idea. You know, she didn't show up, but it was her idea. I wanted to meet at the police station. I wanted to get a stop to the violence that I had been having to go through for over a year by that point. But everybody was too busy giving me advice, too busy telling me how to think and how to feel. People told me just go away for a while, it'll blow over. When I came back, it was worse. I was seeing therapists. I was trying to get the help that I needed. People said, you got to go see these people and you got to go see those people. And I went to go see those people and it didn't work out so good. And it wasn't my fault or my decision for these things to happen. I didn't ask for Tamara to quit her job. I didn't ask for the police to blow me off and tell me I just needed to man up. I mean, that's some sexist bullshit right there. You're not allowed to discriminate against people when it comes to hiring, anyway. You're not allowed to discriminate against people because of their religion, because of the color of their skin, because of their gender, because of their age. But then again, when it came to all of this, what did I have to deal with? People who don't like my religious beliefs. They didn't like my gender. They didn't like my age. Didn't like my skin color. I'm not worth help because I'm not a minority. I'm not worth help because I'm not a female. I'm not worth help because I'm not good looking. I'm not worth help because I'm not your religion. But also, just because I'm not schizophrenic doesn't mean that I can't connect with them. It doesn't mean that we didn't have to go through the same things. Now, this young woman, maybe she was gang stalked. Maybe she wasn't. I wasn't there. But I do know that there are a lot of people who have a lot of overwhelming evidence about the things that these people were doing. In a lot of different cases, there are a lot of different people who have to deal with crooked judges, crooked cops, crooked public pretenders. And whether or not these predators get away with it depends on, do you have people actually in your corner? Do you have people who are going to stand with you? Or are they just going to type pretty words at you in Messenger? Tell you how to think and how to feel. Tell you that they have to do it all by themselves. Meanwhile, half of their stuff is paid because they're living under a roof with their husband or their wife. They have their emotional needs taken care of there. They can have a conversation. It sucks living in a house with somebody that you can't have a conversation with. It does. It sucks even worse when you really need help. And it's just hurry up